Hey gang, East Coast Lumberjack here. And today we're going to talk about what you do if you have an odd-shaped or abnormal eye. Okay? So, not all axes are created equal. Goes without saying. So this is a Canadian Tire Special. Okay? Let's just take a look at this eye. Now, what do we notice about it? Okay, it's obvious that it's a lot thicker on this side than on this side. See that? It's really pronounced over here. Okay, so who's ever crafting these things, it ain't the East Coast Lumberjack because that kind of stuff matters. Okay, now the problem with that is, and then if you look down the blade, if you look down the blade, see the blade's offset a little bit? Okay. So, everything's here to make your life miserable. Now, I know it's not intentional. These guys are pumping these out really fast. Now, you can see that I've cleaned it up. Now, it is an old, just a Canadian Tire Special. So, it's got a lot of weight. It's good for splitting. I've got a nice edge on it now. Okay, so I ground an edge on it, and it's a splitting maul, so you don't want a nice chopping edge. You want a stouter edge. You want something that's got more angle and will withstand abuse. And this baby's had some abuse. So I've got it all cleaned up. It looks pretty flippin' sharp, really, for what it is. Okay, but now the problem is, I've started hanging this. So I made a handle. I made a handle out of white ash. And I've cooked it, okay? I've burnt the handle. And I do that intentionally to show the grain. It's a sweet looking handle. Now, you say, where's the grain? That's what we do at East Coast Lumberjack. We make handles straight as a die, straight as a gun barrel, and the grain runs straight down the handle. Okay, that's what we do. Okay, it's a quality handle, obviously. So all you people that have gone to hardware stores and looked for hours on end through their piles and realized, man, the grain's wrong, they're crooked, they're varnished, that's why you pay a couple extra dollars for an East Coast Lumberjack handle, okay? Because you don't worry about that. It comes straight and true. Grain's beautiful. Look at that grain, okay? Everything's straight. But now the problem is when you get a handle that's nice and straight, and then we try to hang it on a head like this. Now remember, I told you before, the two things you got to line up, okay? And you people that are hanging axes, you got to line up the toe, the heel, and this part of your bit. That's got to be in a straight line. So, if this is a straight line, toe, heel, okay? So that's not bad there. But the other thing that has to be straight is your bit has to be, you look down your bit and it should be right in the middle of your palm swell. Now if I can line this up, oh yeah, you can see it here. Okay, see how far off we are here? Merry Christmas! Okay, so this is a challenge for the old East Coast Lumberjack. So when I'm looking down it, the axe head has to come this way. Okay, it has to bend over here to be in the middle of this. So that means I have to take a lot of wood off of this side because the axe head itself has to twist in. Okay, so I've marked it, okay, to show where I need to take more wood off. Now, you see what's happening. Okay, we're taking a lot of wood off one side of this thing. Okay, that's to line it up. That's to make the metal worker who was sleeping on a Friday or whatever he was doing when he was crafting that, and then likely it was just they're mass producing them, right? But anyways, it makes our life on the handle end a pain in the butt because we got to make up for that. Okay, we've got to take a lot more wood off of this side of the axe to bring that around. Now, there's two things you can do. You can just hang it crooked. It'll look beautiful. unless you know what you're doing. And then you look at the axe and you realize, geez, man, that's not. Or when you try to split your firewood and you realize you can't stay in place twice in a row. So that's when it all comes out. That's when the truth comes out and it comes home to roost. But, so what we're going to do, actually I should bring you down so see what we're doing here. So I'm obviously shaving off a pile more wood on this side of the handle to bring that around. So, one side, and then I'm going to leave it on the other side because I want it to ride up on the other side and pull. I want it to pull that side and you have lots of room to wiggle on this side. Okay? So that's what we're doing right now. So, let's check it out. So I've taken a bit off. Okay, now it hasn't come much. So now the other thing we can do, because we want it to sit over, you can take it off at the bottom part of here, and you can take it off the top part of here, and that'll actually swing it. That'll swing your head. So we know we've got a lot of extra there. Okay, we know we've got a lot of extra on this side, so let's take a little bit off of this side. Okay, and see if we can't swing this thing around a little bit. And I'm going to use my rasp. So I'll just show you this quickly. I'm going to take a bunch off of here, quick. Now I bet you any money this made a world of difference. Which it did, okay? It's perfect right there, okay? This blade is right in the middle of that. But now what's going to happen is, as it moves down the handle, that may change a little bit. There's my maul right there. So I tapped it on a little bit further. Ooh, not bad. Okay, not bad. So, what we can see here, okay, we got a lot of slack to take up in here, but that's okay. Okay, all we need is a big wedge, and that'll take up all that slack. I'm not worried about that a bit. We are straight in line, and of course we're peeling here a little bit, and we're fine here. So, what do I want to do? I want to keep it there. So actually, I want this to travel up on here, okay? So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to pop this back out again, and let the axe head you got to think of a name for this one, so people know what we're up to, okay? So you can see it's starting to squeeze here. It's riding up here, and that's what I wanted to do. So I'm just going to take that off a little bit so it continues to ride up on this side, and I'm going to keep taking it off a little bit more over here so it swings over. Okay, so that's the two things we want to do to get this straight. We know we need it off of this side so it keeps moving down the axe head, down the axe handle in the direction we want it to go. We want it to pull to the left. So the bottom's got to be free to move left. And then we can take a little bit more off the top. Now let's smooth this out because, as you saw, we are almost there. So I'm going to smooth this out because it might be the last time we put it on. If everything goes well, I want it seated down a little bit farther. I could have it sitting up there, but I think we'll seat it down a little bit farther. And now on this side, that's where that little curl is right there. I'm just going to take that off just a whisker, okay? Because I want that to keep riding up there. So I'm just going to take that off just a whisker, and I'm going to smooth this out back here. So if the axe head comes to rest there this time, we're good to go. And then I'm also going to shave this down a little bit here, because as we put that down, we want it to twist this way. So I took a little bit more off of here so it twists in the direction we want it to go. Okay, so now there should be lots of wiggle room here, which there is. Okay, and then you always want to line it up again. And we're perfect right there. Now we're going to tap it along. See how we made out. Okay, so now we're getting our proud hang. Okay, still good. Okay, it's still good. Right on the money. So now the question is now is how far do we want to bring it down to this shoulder? Okay. So it's starting to gouge a little bit here again. Okay, so we can take that out just a whisker more. But I think we're almost where we want to be. Okay, I don't think we're going to take it. I'm not going to bring it the whole way down to the top of that shoulder. And then all we need to do then, we need to burn it up top here where I've taken it off by working the handle. Now the other thing you need to check. You need to check your kerf. Okay, so right now we're hanging here, and you can see the kerf is 3/4 of the way to the bottom. Now, if I'm going to move that down a little bit more, the kerf will be halfway. So I want it between 1/2 and 3/4. So I'm going to take that down just a little bit more right now. Okay, so I took my kerf down just a little bit more, so that when I put it on there as far as I want it to go, I'll have lots of room for my wedge. You don't want to go too far, but you definitely don't want to go too shallow. If your kerf isn't deep enough in your handle and you start driving that wedge, it's going to split at the bottom. And when it splits at the bottom, it's going to keep on coming out the bottom of your axe head. Okay, now it may hold it for a bit, but eventually it'll come through. So, word of the wise, make sure your kerf is deep enough so you don't wind up in that pickle. Okay, so that's that side smoothed out. Now we're going back to this side, because it's dragging. You can see the black marks here where it's dragging a lot. And we're just going to take that down a whisker more. Go, and then smooth it out, okay? Just as if the axe is going on to rest for good, because this time it likely will. Okay, so let's sand that, and my sandpaper is right underneath you guys. So there's our sandpaper. We're just gonna sand this smooth up top here, so when the axe head comes to rest finally, it's a nice smooth transition. So essentially you're wedging the bottom as well, right? Because your handle is gradually getting wider. So as the axe head comes down there, it's getting tighter and tighter all the time. So it's wedged nice and tight at the bottom. And then if you wedge it nice and tight at the top, you got her. Okay, it can't go anywhere. Now the big $100 question: do I glue my wedge? Now, the East Coast Lumberjack does not glue his wedges. It's like snowing. Now, I don't glue my wedges for a couple of reasons. Number one, if your handle's not perfectly dry and you put your new wedge in and you glued it, once it stops, as soon as it gets loose, you can't keep pounding the wedge in. You're beat. It's staying there. It's glued. Okay, so that's one reason I don't. Second reason is it's really hard to remove it when it comes time to put a new handle in. So you can drill that all out, but you're going to bust it, and basically you got to just drill the whole thing out. So you're going to ruin that handle. A lot of times I can reuse my handles if I just pop the wedge out. And number 3, the way I make my wedges when I run them through the bandsaw, see these little ridges? Okay, see these little lines here? Bandsaw lines? That acts as friction, okay? And it creates a lot. It's not just a smooth wedge like they sell you in the stores. It's a wedge from the East Coast Lumberjack because the guy's got a year or two behind his belt, okay? And I'm not the sharpest tack in the box, but I have learned a couple things, okay? And I'm passing them on here on YouTube. So when I make my wedges the way I do, those little grooves create a lot of friction. So when I pound my wedge in, it's really tough to pull it out. Okay, now always check your axe handles for moisture content. Okay, and here's my little moisture meter. Okay, that's a moisture meter, and it works really slick as long as your batteries are good. You push the on button, touch your 2 probes, 6% moisture. Okay, right here, 6% moisture. Okay, right down bottom here, come on, darling, don't fail me now. 6% moisture. Okay, so a little something I've learned. It's summer now, and I've got my dehumidifier running here. You can hear it down here non-stop because all my the handle bolts I'm going to be using are in here. Now I've done a couple things. I've run out of space. Well, actually, I've run out of space in the barn for my handle wood to dry. So I've got a bunch of nice ash, and I didn't want to. And the other problem I'm having, I got a rotator cuff issue. Okay, and thanks for the advice that guys have posted on the YouTube channel here. But I usually throw my handle wood up above in the garage and stack it up there for the summer. It's nice and dry. It dries really well up there. But my shoulders aren't allowing it, so rather than throw it up, I threw it down. So I've got some handle wood in the basement, and it's only been cut for about 2 months. Okay, ash wood. Now ash dries quick. As anyone that works with wood, hickory takes about a year to dry. Ash takes about 2 months at the most to dry, so it doesn't take long. Now, I just made these handles out of that ash right here the other day. So let's check these out. Okay, this handle here, it's not telling me anything. 12%. Okay, so it's double. Now that's the stuff I just threw in. This here is an old handle that was hanging along the wall. It's at 6%, and that's where you want to be. Okay, shut up and get to the point, Cumberland. Okay, you want to be at 6%. Okay, if you're at 6%, you're not going to get much more moisture out of this handle. So once I wedge this baby, it's there for good. Okay, which is good. Now this 12%, there's still another 6% it can drop. So if I put this into an axe, it's going to get loose. Okay, that other 6% is going to come out this summer while it's nice and hot, and then the head's going to get loose. So if you glue your wedge, you're not going to be able to pound it in farther. So what I would do if I'm hanging this is I leave the wedge out a whisker. Okay, don't pound it in the whole way, and don't cut it off yet. Pound it in, use it with that wedge hanging out for a little bit, because as that moisture content drops, you're going to be able to pound that wedge a little bit farther. Okay, what was this here? 30 bucks, moisture meter. It's invaluable because you'll know what to do when you're wedging your axes. Okay, so moisture meter, and where you use it and how you use it and what it'll help you determine. It will let you know if you're going to get more shrinkage in your wood or not. Okay, so it's all smooth, it's ready to go on. Our last trip in, and then what I'll do is I'll burn it with the axe head on. Okay, so let's send it to its final resting place. Although with an axe, that's a good thing. Okay, so there it is. You can see how proud it sits now. Okay, perfect. Let's check this again. Perfect. Let's check the straightness here. Toe, heel. Perfect. Okay, so this is great. Okay, so this one is ready to go. So now what I'll do is now the other thing is, you also got to figure out, so I've got you want to make sure your wedge is going to be wide enough. Okay, so I've got about a 1/16. I've got about a 1/16 on each side, so that makes an 1/8. Plus I've got the wedge in the middle, that's another little bit. So the width of your wedge needs to be wide enough to take up all that slack. And the other thing you have to remember is, because it's sitting this high, you don't want to start pounding your wedge and then all of a sudden, whoop, your wedge is below that and you can't pound it anymore. Okay, so sometimes I have to take this off just a little bit more to make sure I get my wedge in far enough. So there it is. I've taken it off a little bit more. Now I can start my wedge, okay, in the groove. And now we're going to keep driving it in there. And I don't have to worry about it fetching up at the bottom, because remember we took our kerf down a little bit farther. Okay, and this is typically what happens. Your wedge will start breaking along there because it's fetched up at the back, but you've still got room to drive at the front. So keep working along that wedge. Go from the front to the back, to the front to the back, because the back will open it up a little bit more, allow the front to get in there a little bit tighter. See how it's getting down there farther in the front? That's fine. There. And because it's 6% moisture, I know this is its final resting place. So now that I've got that wedge beat in there, and you can see now it's starting to bust at the back. It's wedging here bad at the front. That's because it's as tight as we can get it. So, there it is. Okay, a little bit proud, which is nice, just a whisker. And now what I do is I take my kerf, take the kerf, and we're going to round off these sharp edges here on this what's stayed proud. Okay, and that's practical because a lot of times that's sharp enough you can actually cut yourself on it. And I want to get rid of this overrun right here. I'm just gonna, and if it won't come off really slick with a, usually it does with a knife here pretty easy. But if it doesn't, I just take my rasp and rasp that off a little bit. This is going to come. There's not a lot there. And I'm going to round out the back like that. And see how the wedge is filled up the front? So you don't have to worry a whole lot about there being a little bit of space at the front, because your wedge will pick up that slack. We'll flop it over and do this side. Same thing. So we're just taking off that squared edge out here. There. Okay. Round off the back of it. There. So there we go. So all we need to do now is go back out in the shop. We're going to burn this last little bit up top here, and I'm going to polish the top of the axe. Okay, and then this baby is ready for my buddy Rod. I'm taking it to him here at noon. Okay. So that is a tough That's an abnormal eye. How do you hang an abnormal eye? You got to get sharp. You got to get smart and outdo them, because you've got to line up your bit with the bottom of the handle, and your toe and your heel and your palm swell all have to line in a straight line. That means every time you swing that axe, it's going to hit exactly where you want it to go. Okay? Words of wisdom from the old East Coast lumberjack. Join us again next week. We'll have more fun.